Hi, I'm Sarah Wilder. This is the 9 Lives of Sarah Wilder, Surviving the Man I Married. This is part 35C. We just got done talking about, in the previous two episodes, about a really nasty encounter, an altercation between Jim and I. Well, this episode is going to pick up about 10 days later because I still need the blankets for the cold weather. The September, for some reason, in 2022 was very cold, and Rachel's building had no heat. So I made another attempt. I was going to make another attempt to get those blankets and a few sweatshirts and stuff. But after that last encounter, I was just really, I felt off kilter. I'm going to say off kilter because finding those life insurance renewal notices, they set me off like a Roman candle on 4th of July for sure. But in the days after, and this going back to this episode's like 2 weeks later, I'm still feeling off kilter. And it's because it struck something deep inside of me that said, he kept that life insurance in 2019. He deliberately didn't cancel it because he planned on cashing in on it one day. And he planned on having that life insurance policy in place when he did do it. So when he failed to cancel it, that would have been, that's 2019, late spring. And when he made an attempt on my life, it was June of 2022. 3 years. 3 years he had that thing was paying for it. This episode is going to have a little bit more curry. And I apologize because it was the worst behavior of my entire life was September 2022. After that, not so bad, but please buckle up, fasten your seatbelts. There's some turbulence ahead. So why I didn't go buy the house by myself is because he had moved everything for the estate sale that he had when I was living in Becca's house in California. I left him. I was in Northern California. He had a big estate sale. We were supposed to split the money. I never saw a dime. It was over $4,000 he made from stuff he sold, but I never saw a dime. Anyway, the garage was a mess. Nothing was where I had it organized. Nothing was where I left it. And I didn't want to dig through it. It was a big garage, oversized garage, and it was just too much for me. So we agreed to meet in the afternoon when he got home from work, daylight hours, and agreed to another truce. We were going to try it again. So he didn't have the blankets ready when I got there. It wasn't just pull up, get a Rubbermaid bin full of blankets, put them in my car, and I go. Nope. So it wasn't that simple. So I go in the house, and when I go in the house, I let him know, you need to go out back. You need to stay outside and go get the blankets in the garage. I'll be in the house since it'll be a minute. I'm going to get some groceries out of the pantry because I've got a lot of food allergies, very severe. So we have special food that's food safe for me, special things. And so I was loading up, but I told him in no uncertain terms he couldn't be in the same room with me. I opened the back door and the front door, and they both had glass storm doors on them. So I left those open, and those were my terms. In the meantime, I got some reusable bags, and I'm packing up some things I wanted. Well, I no sooner get started on that, and he's not going out to the garage. And I'm like, what is your problem? He goes, why don't you go with me? I want you to go with me. I go, no, I'm not going to the creepy garage with you. I'm not going down the steep steps. I'm not going out back. Nobody can hear me scream. You could snap my neck like a baby bird, and I'm not doing it. Go get my stuff. I'm loading up, and I need you to get this done. You promised, and let's just agree to what we agreed on. Let's just do what we agreed on. And he kept insisting, and he was being creepy, and he had a high-pitched voice, and he was moving kind of weird. I want to say almost serpent-like. And he just had a smirk. He was not, I mean, when I say himself, who the hell knows anymore who himself was? But he was not the usual person I knew when we were married. This was a different personality altogether, and he was oily and slithery. As I sat down at the table, because I just was putting things on the kitchen table as I was taking them out of the pantry and the fridge and stuff, mostly the pantry. And he just refused. He was sitting in the living room just talking my leg off, and he refused. And I said, this is just rude, blah, blah, blah. I'm tired of this. I'll just go to Walmart and buy new blankets. I don't need this bullshit. So I got up, grabbed my stuff, and went to leave. It's just, neither one of us could behave ourselves in September. It was just tit for tat, fight for fight. And we weren't that good at it, honestly. He had deceived me for so long But now I was awake and finding things out, and I was angry and I was agitated. And when we would fight, I would throw things out. I would weaponize things that I knew, like the bullcrap with the lawyer. I did let it slip. I said, I think you threatened my lawyer because when he quit, he was terrified in the voicemail you did something to him, you know, and that was from the psychic, but I let it slip out like it was my own natural suspicion. Anyway, things were not going great. So I stood up. I didn't want another visit from the cops. I didn't want to get trapped in the house. And so I just went ahead and said, I'm just going to go. I'm just leaving. And we were arguing on our way out the door. So we go out onto the front porch, and I'm turning, and I'm just like, this is absolutely unacceptable. This is bullcrap. You agreed to it. We agreed to it right before I got in the car to come here. And in less than an hour, you've managed to do the opposite of everything we agreed on. And we're loudly arguing. And now by this point, I'm using profanity. He's loudly yelling, and he's yelling insults and lies and calling me names like crazy. You guys know how this goes. Well, I just turned my back. I said, I'm leaving. I'm not engaging anymore. Called him some names, told him gave him some colorful feedback on his behavior, and I head for the car. I get in my car, and guess who pulls up? Our good friends, the American Fork Police Department. So this was the fourth time they'd been at my house that year. June 2022, the end of June when the neighbor called them. 10 days earlier when I was breaking jars and he was keeping me prisoner. And now this was 10 days after that, the third week of September. This is the fourth time. So they show up because the neighbor complained about disturbing the peace, a disturbance of the peace. So I stay in my car. The policeman looked at me, kind of acknowledged me, and I stayed put. He told me to stay put, so I did. And I watch as he walks over to the front porch and he starts talking to Jim. And he's talking to Jim in a very casual manner. He's got like his thumb and his hooked onto his cop belt, and he's got one arm leaning on the railing of my porch, and they're talking very warm and friendly. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if this son of a bitch was at my house in June when they all stayed for almost 40 minutes after I pulled away in the ambulance. And while they're having their warm, fuzzy chit chat, two more things happen. One, a police car pulls in behind me, strategically, tactically behind me, and a police pickup truck, both American Fork PD, with its windows all tinted, backs into the cul-de-sac, so the front of the pickup is facing me. So now they're taking a confrontational stance. And listen, I know why. I was a cop wife for more than a quarter century. Domestic situations, domestic disturbances are one of the most common ways that policemen get injured or killed on the job. I know that. Serving warrants is another one, but it could potentially be dangerous for them, and I appreciate that. Only I wasn't the one the danger was from. So when the first cop got done with his friendly chat with Jim, he walked over to the pickup truck, leaned into the passenger side window and just said a few words to that officer, and then he came to my window. He leans in to my window, leans down, and he's not that tall. He doesn't have to lean that far. And he says, he said, it certainly seems like from what I hear from your husband and from what the neighbor said, that I should be citing you for disturbing the peace. And I was like, well, first of all, that neighbor is like madly in love with my husband. You should ask him how she behaved during his 4-day estate sale. She literally stalked him. She's madly in love with him. Also, her home is infested with bats and mice. All the neighborhood kids are afraid of her. They tell me that. So I wouldn't believe too much what she says about that guy over there. That guy over there that you think is telling the truth. Do you know what he did to me in June? And he goes, what, that guy over there? And he points and looks over at my ex. He seems like a pretty great guy. In fact, he tells me, you come over here to the house all the time, bothering him to get stuff. He gives you money, and you're constantly causing problems for him. I go, oh, really? That's very interesting because, listen, I said, he tried to unalive me by poison in June. I'm pretty sure you were one of the people here, although I don't remember. But from what I see, you guys look pretty chummy. I said, and y'all did nothing, never came to the hospital to see me. I said, and also, and I looked right at his body cam. I said, if you're about to Gabby Petito me right here, right now in my own front yard, I have 4 daughters. And if he ends up succeeding at what he's been trying to do, they'll come after you. They'll come for you and your job and your pension. So he really didn't like the Gabby Petito reference. And I don't use that lightly because I followed her case. I still follow, what her parents are up to and everything and what's going on with their case against the Moab Police Department. I feel very invested in that. Anyway, he looks at me and I guess maybe I'd convinced him my husband wasn't such a great guy because he said he seems like a pretty great guy, a pretty great guy. No, he said, why don't you just go home? You need to just go home. And I said, I haven't gotten the blankets I came for. I came for blankets. And I said, and he agreed ahead of time. He'd have them ready in a bin and I could just take them off the porch and go. And that's not what happened. You haven't even heard what happened. So I told him what happened. I told him about all the shenanigans and that man sat in the house and said, I'm not going to get them unless you go out to the garage with me. And I said, why don't you go to the garage and take a look? If you're me, and I am partially handicapped, I have a bad foot, really bad foot, and those stairs out the back of my house down to the garage are very hard for me. And I said he wouldn't do it unless I went with him. He flat out refused. Did he tell you that? He goes, well, no. And he looked at this point, the guy is looking a little embarrassed and he's not happy. And he said, you know what? I'll go get the blankets for you. Okay, so no police report was ever filed for that visit. But it was the fourth time in 3 months the American Fork Police Department had been at my home. And Jim and I had become those people, the scourge of the block. Life is life. Life be lifing. And I was divorcing a malignant narcissist, retired cop, and in Utah County, Utah, which is just okay. So I told Rachel on the drive home to Salt Lake, a 45-minute drive. So I'm chatting to her, and we both agreed. I bounced off of her and owned my part of it. I totally owned my part of it. And also, I forgot to mention, before the cop went in the house and got the blankets, I told him I own my part of it. He pushed my buttons. It was push, push, jump, jump, push, push, jump, jump. And I own that. That's what I did. I let him push my buttons. However, I was sorry to the neighbor. I couldn't stand her. There was nothing I liked about her, but I did disturb her peace. So did Jim, but I own my part of it. And he thanked me. He thanked me for saying that. I said, well, I mean it. I really mean it. I've never been this kind of neighbor. Please come back if you haven't had enough for part 35D. When we finish up the month of September, send help September. There's no help for me at this point for either of us. The hot steaming cow turd is continuing to careen downhill. And in the next episode, it's going to hit rock bottom in a big old splat. And that's when I hit rock bottom again too. So please join me for the next episode. Thank you. I'm Sarah Wilder. This is Surviving the Man I Married, Surviving My Own Horrible Choices.